If you want more information about transparency legislation this year, visit us online at newmexicoinfocus.org. I'm Gene Grant here at the table with this week's Line Opinion panelists. We have Tom Garrity with the Garrity Group PR firm. Always great to have him. Sophie Martin, she's an attorney and editor of DukecityFix.com. Bridget Russell is back. She's with Watchdog.org, and with a little bit of a cold, Eric Griego, being a trooper, former New Mexico State Senator and doctoral fellow at the New Mexico Center for Health and Policy. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Now, let's start with the legislature. Some observers say a handful of divisive bills are getting most of the attention. The Santa Fe New Mexican had a story this week that started with a powerful statement, quote, "This could be called the year of the wedge in state government," end quote. And Tom, do you think there's anything different this year about wedge issues? We always have wedge issues. Depends on your point of view, I suppose. But there are three issues that are sort of dominating things right now, isn't it?
There are. And, you know, I think it's interesting. I think the Santa Fe New Mexican has done a great job this session, as they always do. But, you know, the wedge issues this year are, as far as in the legislation, we have the third grade retention. We have the reemergence of the driver's license bill to repeal the driver's license law that was set in 2012. And then we have the prohibition of union dues being mandatory, which which is a new issue, but now we have the old issue brought in, which is it's now coupled to the minimum wage issue. So I think it's interesting to see how everything is focused on these three issues. I know a lot of folks are saying, oh, well, there's no legislation is moving through. Well, the important legislation is moving through, and that's the budget bill.
That's right.
It might be a couple of days late, as far as there's a 30-day requirement to get the bill over from the House into the Senate, and it will be over into the Senate, if not this weekend probably.
Right.
So, you know, I think the wedge issues are definitely absorbing all the oxygen in the room, but it's definitely not slowing progress down.
Interesting. Sophie Martin, good to see you. There was a thing I read this past week that said there's a possibility here with these three issues Tom mentioned that there might be an 0 for 3 here. Like all three could potentially not work out.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Gene. You know, it's worth noting in the past week, the Albuquerque Journal came out with a poll around 400 voters polled here in the state of New Mexico, which seemed to indicate that there was a lot of popular support for third grade retention, the anti-union law, the right to work, meaning right to work legislation, and for repeal of driver's licenses. And yet, even with that poll out there, it seems very likely that those bills are going to stop in the Senate and not make it to the governor's desk. These are issues that the Senate has hashed out many times. And so the fact that they're able to get through the House, they're not necessarily dealing with a whole new group of people who are going to change their minds about these subjects, regardless of what they see in polling. One of the real challenges, I think, with the Journal poll and polls in general is that you catch high information respondents and you catch low information respondents. And depending on how you ask the question, you can get very different results.
I'm glad you mentioned that too. That's a very good point. Eric Griego, good to see you. Now, let's talk about right to work. On Wednesday night, we had a long floor session, full House floor session about this. The bill passed. And we don't know as we sit here with this taping what's going to happen in the Senate and where with the schedule and all that. But in the House, did you hear anything different that surprised you about that right to work legislation? Because it seemed like everyone was going to take their pound of flesh knowing the thing was going to pass, so you might as well get your licks in as you were listening. What was your sense of it?
Well, of the three sort of wedge issues, this is the new one. I don't think this was ever really debated, not in a very, very long time. It's a new proposal. I think it's incredibly misguided, obviously. I think the polling may be with them depending on the question, although polling has never really governed these decisions. You know, overwhelming support for early childhood funding. You know, nobody's really kind of gone for that. So I think the polling's interesting. It's useful when it supports your side. It tends to not be used by the governor or anybody else.
Right.
You know, the right to work thing, I think, is kind of. I think it's kind of the latest sort of shot across the bow. We're sort of out of. I feel like the folks in charge, the governor and the Republicans in the House, are out of ideas. This is really not. There is really scant evidence this is going to help our economic development strategy. We only have one. If you believe a low-wage strategy is the way that New Mexico should go, you know, low wages, low standards, come here instead of India or the Philippines, it's a great strategy. But if you believe that we need to be on a high-wage road, I think that it's a terrible policy. I was looking for a credible economic developer in the country who will say this is the issue. This is going to bring Tesla. It's a non-issue. In fact, a lot of the research shows that countries or states and countries, but states in the United States that have passed this, there's no correlation with them having a stronger economic outcomes for everybody. In fact, it's quite the contrary. The less protections you have and the less strong your unions are, you tend to have lower wage jobs, you tend to have a lower wage economy, and I just don't think that
And
that's
then where there are unions, other wages go up accordingly.
yeah, and
as
that's
a matter
always
of
been the
fact.
story. By the
Yeah.
way, this is not rocket science.
Sure.
This is a story across America and across the world. If you look at European countries, Germany, the countries that are doing really well.
And through history, I think it's worth noting. Yeah, it's not like this is a new issue.
Yeah, it's
a good point.
and we've just discovered it, and they seem to have the political will and guns, they think, to pass it. I think in the end it's not going to pass because
Interesting.
it's not really about unions. It's about what kind of economic development strategy we want to have.
Interesting to hear you say that because Bridget Russell, Gail Chasey, Representative Chasey mentioned something similar to what Senator Griego just said, and that is, she said, paraphrasing, I'm not sure why we're doing this other than this seems to be the only thing we have to hang our hat on for economic development.
There are other economic development bills in. Ken Martinez and Mary Kay Papen are co-sponsoring in the House and Senate a whole slew of economic development
Glad you
bills.
brought that up.
And those were discussed this week in the House Business and Employment Committee, and there are substantive proposals, and there's a lot of bipartisan agreement on the validity of those. Of course, some of those proposals require money, and our new money is shrinking with the fall of oil prices. With regard to right to work, you can make statistics say what you want. I mean, the Albuquerque Journal did an excellent piece a few weeks ago on here's what the people on the left say, here's what the people on the right say, and it's really, it's like dueling statistics, and we all know what Mark Twain said about statistics.
Sure.
But yeah, what the business community is telling me when I researched my story on right to work is that right to work is one of those things on the checklist for site selectors. And no, right to work is not the panacea going to make New Mexico the next North Carolina. But there are some businesses that will cross it off the list if it's not on there.
I'm curious, I hear that, and I hear that argument, Tom, as well, from other people. My sense of it is, where on that checklist is it? Is it third? Is it 12th? Is it 25th? Not putting
Hard
down
to
what you're
say,
hearing, but you know what I'm saying?
Because there
it's
are
a hard
different
thing.
site selectors.
And are
Right,
those businesses
exactly.
that we want
Yeah.
here? I think that's the other
Exactly.
issue. Is
Right.
are those businesses that are going to bring the types of jobs that New
That's right.
Mexicans can excel in, make a good income, raise our overall standard of living, et cetera.
Exactly
And
right.
it's just, I mean, as has been mentioned many times with people around this table, several weeks in a row at times, it's a distraction.
That's right.
When less than 7% of the total workforce in New Mexico is governed by union labor, it's not amazing. If it was 50%, then maybe we would have a conversation.
That's right.
But it's not.
But does Bridget make the point? She talked about the package that other Democrats. Nobody even knows about this because right to work is taking up all the economic
that's
development.
Part of the big challenge that economic development has is that they have to always work in secret, and they do for good reason.
Sure.
And the economic development community, for the most part, has not done a good job at telling its story.
I would agree.
It's kind of like, oh, look at what we lost, look what we won, and the things that we win lately over the last 5-6 years have all been call centers, which are great because you need one part of that in the economic spectrum, but we need a lot of other things too. And because economic developers can't share the story, we're just kind of left to say, well, if they say it's important, it's important. But clearly, as we've talked about before, it's about water. And it's about tax breaks.
That's right.
And those are the big two things that I think are at the top of every site selector list.
Sure.
After that, you have education. You have maybe right to work. County breaks. I don't know.
Quality of life issues.
I
probably
think
as well.
this whole site selector thing is a huge scam. So there's a lot of research out there that shows that these guys, Tesla's a great example. They knew they were going to Nevada. They said, let's go to Nevada. We want to be there. There's reasons why we want to be there. Now let's go and try to get the best deal we can from the rest of these states, and let's have them throw tax breaks at us. Let's have them change laws for us. So I think the whole strategy, with all due respect to my friends in the economic development establishment, which I think is part of the problem. We talk about the political establishment in the country, in the state. But I think the real problem is we have the same old, tired strategies. Some company out there, Tesla, Bombardier, whatever, pick the last 10 companies we've chased, is going to save us kind of from ourselves, right? Because, but the real issue is, are we investing in early childhood? Are we investing in education? Are we investing in infrastructure? Are we going to be able to compete on the real issues? Not can we throw the most amount of lower labor laws, lots of tax incentives, and I think that the site selection business, it's kind of a scam.
Interesting.
So what can we do to enable what is working?
Okay.
And right now in Albuquerque, Gary Opedal has done a great job in really activating one aspect of entrepreneurism with ABQ ID and really getting that whole community together.
Your point about site selectors and states competing brings up sort of a bigger question for me that, you know, for all of the marvelous things about our federal system, one of the dark sides of federalism is that in this economy right now, it's pitting states against states. And it's big companies that are winning, and it's working people that are losing. Because, you know, Texas is going to have its economic development incentives. It's going to sweeten the pot. So is Colorado. So is Nevada. And New Mexico has to play the game, or we're going to end up in last place.
So that's part of your checklist, I think, the $50 million slush fund, not a slush fund, but you know, the closing fund, I guess is the best way to call it. That's part of that checklist, I would think, too, that toolbox you have, different things you could use. So we'll see how this one plays out. Now, that's all the time we have for that one. Up next, we hear why Representative Michelle Lujan Grisham is backing legislation to require special prosecutors in some cases involving police officers.